Hello friends, welcome back to EPG Pathshala for another interesting session on constructors. Apart from discussing more flavors of constructors, in this module we would be discussing another special function known as destructor. By end of this module, we will be learning copy constructor, dynamic construction of data members through constructors, the need of copy constructor, destructors, need of destructors, and how to define copy constructors and destructors for our class. In the previous session, we saw default constructor, we also saw parameterized constructor. A parameterized constructor is one which can have one or more parameters of any type. There is only one exception to this. A single parameter constructor can have parameter of any type except the object of the same class. For example, in our time class, we cannot define a constructor which is a single parameter constructor taking object of time class as its parameters. Now, why this restriction? Well, there is understandable logic behind this. Now, see, the objects in C++ are passed as value, and whenever variable is passed as value, a temporary copy of that variable is created in memory. So, when we pass an object to a function, a temporary copy of that object will be created. Now, in this constructor of ours, we are passing time object as an argument. So, when we pass this time object as an argument, a temporary copy of time will be created, and for construction of this temporary copy of time object, we would be requiring the invocation of this constructor again, and when we invoke this constructor again, we would need the temporary copy of another time object to be passed as an argument to this second invocation of the time object, and this process goes on indefinitely, and therefore, the compiler cannot allow us to define such kind of constructor. But we may want to have the facility of creating one object using another object. For example, for our time class, we may define an object T1 which is initialized with some specific value, let us say 12, 30, 20. Now, we want to define another object called T2, and we want the T2 to be created as a copy of T1. We would want to create this T2 object like this, time T2 T1, but as this kind of constructor is not allowed, it will not be possible for us to define or create T2 like this. If we want to have this kind of facility available to us, and we want that we should be able to create an object as a copy of another object, we have solution to that. What is the solution? That we can define a copy constructor. Now, what is copy constructor? Copy constructor is nothing but a single parameter constructor which takes the object reference as its argument. Now, let us understand this with the help of the example. Here, if we want to define a copy constructor for our time class, it would be time const time ampersand t. Here we have defined a single parameter constructor, and as a argument we are passing object reference, and we are passing this object reference as const. Now, it is not necessary for us to pass this object reference as const, but it is a good practice to pass it as const, so that the accidental modification in the constructor does not affect the original object. Now, since here we are passing the object reference and not the value, there is no need of creation of temporary copy of time object. Hence, the earlier problem that we discussed is not there, and we are able to create object as a copy of earlier defined object. So, now once we define this kind of a copy constructor, now it is possible for us to define T1 using a parameterized constructor and then later define another object T2 as a copy of this constructor. A copy constructor will always be called in two situations. The first situation is that an object is initialized with the other object of the same class. For example, if we define an object T1 initializing its data members with values 12, 30, 30 and we define time T2 as that is same as T1 and we define another time object T3 which is again a copy of T1. Now, here both object T2 and T3 are created using copy constructor. Now, the another case where the copy constructor will always be invoked is that whenever we pass an object to a function, the function returns an object. In both these situations, the copy constructor will be called. Now, when we pass an object as an argument, since the objects are passed as values, a copy of that object is to be created. Therefore, the copy constructor will be invoked, and when we return object, at that time also a temporary copy of the object need to be created. Therefore, a copy constructor will be called. Now, what if we do not define any copy constructor? Actually, the example that we have been using so far or which we have learned so far, we have not defined copy constructor in this class. Now, in those programs, in some of the cases we have passed object as an argument to those functions. So, in most of the programs we would have some functions in which object will be passed as an argument to that function. So, if we do not define a copy constructor in a class, how that temporary copy of object will be created? Well, this will be created using a default copy constructor. As in case of constructor, when we do not define any constructor in the class, compiler generates a default constructor of its own and it provides our class with a default constructor. In the similar fashion, if we do not define any copy constructor, the compiler will provide our class with a default copy constructor. Now, the question is that if the compiler provides a default copy constructor, do we need to define our own constructor? That is, if the user defined copy constructor is needed? Yes, there are situations in which the user defined copy constructor is required. The compiler provided copy constructor is good enough if we want bit by bit or you can say byte by byte or field by field copy to be created. The time class example that we have discussed just now actually do not require user defined copy constructor, because the compiler provided copy constructor will do the similar job. User defined copy constructor is needed when in our class some of the data members are dynamically constructed in constructors, which means that the memory to some of the data members of the class is dynamically allocated in constructor. Now, before understanding the need of copy constructor or user defined copy constructor, let us take an example where the object or object's data members are dynamically constructed. Let us take an example of a class vector. Now, to define this class, we need two data members. One data member to store the size. So, in our class we have taken a data member as int size, which would be storing the size of vector. Now, we will be using another member to store the vector. So, we need to define another data member and let us give the name to that data member as array. So, the second data member is array, in which we will be storing our vector. Now, what should be the data type of this array? There are two ways. One, that we can define this array as a fixed sized array. Now, if we define array as a fixed size array, every object of this vector class will be allocated memory for those many elements in the array. Let us say if the size of the array as 10, in that case every object of type vector will be having array of size 10 as its member. So, as you can see in this example, the object is defined two data members in size and another one is the array of size 100. Now, when we declare or when we instantiate this class and we declare the objects of this class, namely V1, V2 and V3, V1 with size let us say 30, V2 with size 80 and V3 with size 160, first two objects can be constructed, but third object construction has a problem, because the size of the array that inside the class we have defined as 100. So, the upper limit of that array is 100. So, the maximum element that we can have in a vector is only 100. So, when we try to define a vector with the size 160, it cannot be created or it cannot be stored. It cannot be stored in the object of this class. So, in this scenario, there are two things. One, we might end up wasting lot of memory, as in V1 object we are actually going to utilize 30 integer locations, whereas the memory will be allocated for 100 elements. In V2 we will be getting memory allocated for 80 elements, memory allocated for 100 elements, and we would actually be utilizing only 80. So, in these two cases we are wasting some amount of memory, and in the third case we are not able to use the object of this class to store this vector, that is a vector of size 160 cannot be stored in the object of this class. To solve this problem, the other option with us is that instead of defining array as a fixed size array, we can create, we can define it as a pointer to integer, and we can get memory allocated for specific size. So, for example, if first vector we want to create with 30 elements, in that case we can get memory allocated for 30 integers and its address can be stored in variable array. In the next instance, when we want to create a vector of size 80, we can get memory allocated for 80 elements and its address we can store in array. And in the third case, when we want the vector to be created with 160 elements, we can get the memory allocated for 160 integers and its address we can store in array. This way we can solve the problem of memory wastage, and here we will be able to use this class for storing any size of an array as long as the memory is available in the program area, in the heap. Okay. So, this problem is solved when we get the memory allocated for variable array dynamically in the constructor, but this solution solves this problem, but has another problem associated with this. Now, what is this problem? Whenever we get memory allocated dynamically for any of these data members, this memory is not allocated within object. It is allocated in heap outside the object. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Now, let us say if we create a vector variable V1 with size 5. In that case, the memory allocated to V1 will be for storing integer size and address of the vector for which the memory is allocated using new operators. But the memory that was created allocated using new operators will not be allocated memory inside the object, it will be given memory in the heap outside the object. So, the vector lies outside the object. One thing that though this approach is memory efficient, but to some extent it violates encapsulation and data hiding. So, unless the memory wastage in the earlier scheme is very high, or the variation in the size of various vectors that we want to store in the objects of vector class varies too much, the earlier approach may turn out to be better. So, apart from violation of encapsulation and data hiding, there is one more problem. Let us take the example where we create object V1 with size 5. So, the memory will be allocated to V1 for storing size and address of the vector whose memory is being allocated using new operator. Now, this vectors will actually be stored in heap and this size will be stored in V1. So, in V1 we only store address, size and the address of the vector, and vector gets memory allocated in heap. Now, let us say I create another object V2 as a copy of V1. Now, since we are not defining any copy constructor of our own, for construction or for creation of this copy, the compiler provided copy constructor will be used. Now, when compiler provided copy constructor is used, it would do bit by bit or byte by byte or field by field, whatever you want to say, that kind of an copy which we call is shallow copy. That is, it would take the contents of one object as it is and put it into this. So, now see what will happen, what kind of copy of V1 will be created in V2, size will be as it is copied, address will as it is be copied, but the copy of that vector will not be created. Now, in this scenario, V1 and V2 both will be pointing to same vector, that is the second data member array will be pointing to same vector in V1 and V2 both. Now, what is the problem with this? Since both are sharing the same copy, if I modify the vector in V2, it gets modified for V1 as well, and the modification that I do in vector in V1, that modifies the vector of V2 as well. Here we wanted to create the V2 as a copy of V1, that is, we wanted the initial values to be used for creation of T2, we wanted T2 to be created with the same initial values, but later on we may not want both the vectors to be performing the same operation. So, to solve this problem, we will have to define our own copy constructor, and in which we need to define the copy constructor in such a way that it performs or it does a deep copy of the original object. Now, see in the program, now here we create our own copy constructor, and you can see inside the copy constructor we are getting memory allocated for another vector, and the contents of the original object's vector are copied into the vector for which we are getting memory allocated in copy constructor copied. So, now even the copy of vector is also being made. In the earlier case, only the copy of address was made, here the copy of the vector is also being made. Let us understand it with the help of this figure. Now, see, when we define our own copy constructor as we have defined in this class, and now we instantiate or when we create V1 object with size 5, and then when we create V2 as a copy of V1, there will be separate vectors copies for V1 and V2. Now, you see the V1 will not be exact replica of V2, or you can say V2 is not exact replica of V1, because the array data member of V1 will be having a different address, and array data member of V2 will be having different address, but that is okay, address is not important, we want the copy of the vector to be created, and that has been created. Now, if we make any changes in vector using V2, those changes will not be reflected in V1's vector, and if we make any changes in V1, those changes will not be reflected in V2's member. So, when we get some of the data members dynamically created, we need to take care of these kind of situation. Well, another issue with the data members getting dynamically constructed is that in our case, when we create V1, wherein the vector inside V1 is dynamically created, or the memory to that vector is allocated using new operator, which is allocated outside the object. The problem is that when this V object will go out of scope, the memory allocated to V will be released, but the memory that was created using new operator and that which was there in heap, that will not be released. So, V is released. Now, let us understand this also with the help of the diagram here. When V goes out of scope, the memory for V is released, but the memory that we got allocated using new operator in constructor, that will not be released. So, this will end up generating lot of garbage, and when we do it, when we deal with the large number of such objects, then the memory which is garbage will be very high. So, what is the solution to this problem? Well, the answer to this problem is another special function known as destructor. Destructor is a counterpart of constructor. Constructor creates the object and destructor is used for destroying the object. Destructor also is a special member function. It is also special because destructor's name also is same as that of class, but it is preceded by a tilde sign to differentiate itself with constructor. So, destructor has the name same as class name preceded by tilde. It is also automatically invoked when the object goes out of scope. As constructor is automatically invoked at the time of creation, destructor will be automatically invoked at the time of destruction of the object. The destruction of object will take place when the object goes out of scope or when we explicitly delete an dynamically constructed object. The object that whose memory we got dynamically. Here we are not talking about the dynamic construction of data member, here we are talking about the dynamic construction of the whole object, that is we say new time. If that is how we are getting object constructed, when we delete this, at that time also the destructor will be gone. Destructor also is not mandatory for us to write. In most of the cases, we do not require to write destructor function, the default destructor is good enough. It is useful for the classes which require to write cleanup code, for example, closing a file, releasing some resources occupied by the object, or when we need to deallocate the dynamically allocated memory to some of the data members that we got dynamically created in constructor as we did in the class of the vector. So, the problem that we discussed in our vector class, that when an object goes out of scope, only the memory of object gets released, but the memory dynamically constructed for vector in heap does not get released, can be solved when we define our own destructor and within that destructor we write a code to explicitly release that memory using delete operator. Let us see how to define a destructor for our vector class, so that the memory which was earlier not getting released, the memory that we got allocated using new operator and was not getting released earlier, with appropriate creation of or with creation of an appropriate destructor can be now released. So, in this example, now we are creating a destructor for our vector class. So, how do we create that destructor? We would say vector preceded by tilde sign, and inside this destructor we are deleting the memory or releasing the memory using delete operator. This is the memory that we got allocated using new operator in the constructor. Now, once we define this destructor in our class, the problem of that memory leak will not be there, that is no garbage will be generated, because whenever the object will go out of scope, just before going out of scope, the destructor will be automatically invoked by the compiler, and when this destructor gets invoked, it would be releasing the memory, dynamic memory in the heap, and then the object will be destructed. So, now as you can see in the diagram, the V that is object of vector class goes out of scope, the object memory is also released, and before that memory is released, the dynamic memory constructed in the constructor also is released. So, no garbage created here. Well, when we define this destructor, we are solving the problem of having garbage memory generated. But if we define our own destructor and we do not define our own copy constructor which does a deep copy, the creation of this destructor may create other problems. For example, let us take an example of our vector class where we define our own destructor, but we do not define our copy constructor. Now, what will happen when we create an object V with size 5, the memory to V will be allocated for size and the address, and in the constructor the memory for 5 integers will be allocated in heap whose address will be stored in variable array. Now, when we create another variable V2 as a copy of this V1, V1 will be created using default copy constructor, therefore, there will be a shallow copy. So, the size and address will be as it is copied, but the copy of that vector will not be created. So, V1 and V2 both will be pointing to same. Now, let us say in our main program, the scope of V and V2 is different. In this case, what will happen? The V2 will go out of scope before V, that is V2 will go out of scope, but at that time V1 would still be alive. Now, when V2 goes out of scope, the destructor will be called, and this destructor will be releasing the memory to that vector, and when it release the memory to this vector, we have actually released the vector of V also, because V and V2 were sharing the same vector. So, the problem is that once the V2 goes out of scope, even V1 will be losing its vector, which is not desired. We wanted the vector of V1 to still be there, because we further would like to use V in the program. Therefore, whenever we define our own destructor which is releasing the memory constructed dynamically in the constructor, it is necessary that we also define our copy constructor, so that whenever a copy of an object is created, in the deep copy is being done, as you can see in the diagram. When we have copy constructor also there in this program, then deep copy is being done, and V and V2 are no longer sharing the same vector, and therefore, now when V2 goes out of scope, its vector will be released, but that will have no impact on V. Let me quickly summarize what we have learnt in this module. In C++, a copy of an object is created using copy constructor. In case a class does not define any copy constructor, compiler provides one. Copy constructor does a shallow copy of the object. A class must define a copy constructor of its own if it involves dynamic memory allocation, because then we would be needing a deep copy of the object to be created. At the time of object destruction, the destructor function is invoked. Just like constructor, compiler will also provide a default destructor in case a class does not define any destructor. Destructors are invoked implicitly by compiler at the time of object destruction. Similar as the constructors are automatically invoked at the time of creation of the object, destructors are invoked automatically at the time of destruction. Destructor overloading is not possible because destructor cannot take any argument. A class must contain a destructor function if it involves dynamic memory allocation. So, that is all for now in this module. Look forward to meet you in the next module. Bye for now. Thank you.